Well, blessings to you, my friends and my family. You know, the Bible says, wherever your heart is, that's where your treasure is also. In other words, we put our money not just where our mouth is, we put our money where our heart is. I believe that. I believe that if I believe in something, if I'm invested in something, if I'm a part of something that I believe in, then I believe I also put my money into it. Well, the same goes for the local church. The same goes for helping to move the kingdom agenda forward. If you believe in what we're doing in this part of the vineyard, if you're saying that you're connected and you're blessed by what we're doing here, well, then you will also put your treasure there. Listen, this is not a time to manipulate. We're just gonna talk real, ladies and gentlemen. If I say I believe in something and I'm connected with it, well, then I will also make investments. And when we have our offerings, our time of giving, it's us making our hearts evident through our giving. Yeah. And so we ask that you continue to do that. Thank you for those that do it and you're consistent with it. This may be your first time. We want you to be a part of what we're doing. We work the community. We advance the kingdom. We want to keep up with the technology of the day. We want to be a blessing to those, even in other countries. God has blessed us to be in holistic ministry. We have things where we are able to bless couples and singles and children, but it takes finances to do those things. And we got a whole lot more in store for us. So consider partnering with us today. God will bless you because this is good ground. Yeah, this is a great ministry that God has allowed us to be a part of for such a time as this. So if your heart is here, then I'm asking that you would consider your treasure as well. Like I always say, ask God what you should give. Whatever He says, it will be right. I love you and I thank you in advance. And I pray that God will continue to bless your life because you have blessed the lives of many that you may not ever meet. In Jesus' name. Blessings, my GPWA family and friends. God bless you. God bless each and every one of you. I'm so delighted you've come and joined us tonight for another week in the lab. Welcome to the GPWA Listening Lab. You are not here by happenstance. You are here according to God's divine pleasure and will for your life. And I'm glad you are here. Well, church, I missed y'all on Sunday. I was in Ypsilanti, Michigan, preaching for Bishop Grayson for Pentecost Sunday, and we had a grand time there. But I am thankful to God for all of you that were at church on Sunday, be it in person or online, that were there to celebrate the Lord Jesus Christ as the ministry went forth. Elder Jonathan Banks from Apostolic Faith Church, our friend and brother, did a tremendous job and charged the church with walking in our assignments as we've been called to. And so thankful to God for him and the word of God that blessed us, and for each and every one of you that worked in your respective places. You know, one of the true marks of leadership is how things operate in the absence of the leader. It's one thing for people to do what they know to do or should do when the leader is there. But the mark of a true leader or great leadership or good leadership is what is the impact in the absence of the leader. And so thank you for doing what you do as unto the Lord, right? You do it heartily, as the Bible says, as unto the Lord. And so thank you for that. That makes pastoring very, very much a blessing in my life. Also, I want to thank God for those of you that were at Women of Harmony on Saturday with Lady P. And you all did your secret sister reveal and all of that. It looked like it was a wonderful time, the fellowship and all of that. And I know she has some wonderful things coming up for the women at the church. And so I want you to stay a part of what's going on and stay in the know, right? Stay in the know. You won't know if you don't stay in the know. But thank you all for supporting that, and everybody that came in and to the house for that. It was a great, great time. Really quick, couple of announcements. I want you to remember June 24th is our church picnic, right? Come on here. June 24th. Kobe! June 24th is our church picnic from 11 to 4. I want you guys to come on out. It's going to be a good time. It's at the same place we have it every year at Sunset Park. You know, we're going to have the bouncy house out there for the kids. It's being catered. So this year, nobody has to cook. Nobody has to be on the grill. We're having it catered, so we'll all get to enjoy it. You know how we do games and all of that every year. So it's going to be on that Saturday from 11 to 4. Invite your family and friends, and we have the food that'll be there. And you know how I say, right? That food will be there until it's gone. Ain't nobody putting no plates up. All right, it started at 11. It ends at 4. Now, let me say it like y'all say it. It ends at 4. It started at 11. It ends at 4. All right, but it's going to be a great time. I want you to come out and celebrate with us, okay? All right, I see you all are doing it. If you haven't already, I want you to share this. Do that quickly. Hit the share button. I've shared it. Once you share it, just put that in the comments, because we're getting ready to go into our teaching tonight. Just put shared when you share this. When you share it, that's showing us that you are partnering with us. We're on YouTube and we're on Facebook right now, YouTube and Facebook. So if you're on YouTube, God bless you to our YouTube campus. Share this. If you're on Facebook, I need you to share this. All right. When you share it, just put shared in the comments. That's showing Pastor Jay that you are partnering with me. All right. Hit that share button. It's free. Help Pastor Jay get the gospel out today. It don't cost us anything to do that. So thank you all for sharing it. Thank you, Lady P. Thank you. Thank you. Our speaker has even shared it. Dr. Brown has shared it for us. Come on. All right. Glory to God. It's going to be a great, great time. So let's get people in here for this tremendous time we're going to have. As you all well know, we believe in being a holistic ministry. We believe in doing things to support the mind, the body, and the spirit, right? Man is a trichotomy. And so we feel that every part of man has to be ministered to. Every part of man has to be dealt with. Check this out. Every part of man needs to be healthy. All right. Mind, body, and spirit. We need it to be healthy in every dynamic. All right. We don't want to just be great at having praise breaks, but horrible health. All right. Or we don't want to have great health, but a horrible mentality, a horrible mind. All right. So mind, body, and spirit, we believe in covering it all. And this is Mental Health Month, or it's recognized as Mental Health Month. Every month really is Mental Health Month, but May is recognized as that. The first 2 weeks of this month, I did a teaching on mastering your, mastering your talent, your triggers, and your temptations. And then last week, Dr. Ray Van Key taught us, and he dealt with faith and mental health, and connecting the two, not making them oppose one another, but how they are married to one another. Remember, he told us last week how the church needs to be sensitive, so we should treat everyone like they come from a place of trauma, so that we're not just doing things that's comfortable or things that we're used to doing in our culture. Maybe we talk about the laying hands on people, telling people to come up that you don't even know. Well, treat people like they come from a place of trauma, so it heightens our sensitivity, right? To be conscious of how we treat one another. And so it's dynamic. And tonight we have my sister. Listen, this is my sister for real. This is my sister. We've worked together for years in IPYPU, and she is a PhD. She's Dr. Malaika Brown, and I'm getting ready to bring, thank you. I see y'all sharing it. Thank you. I'm getting ready to bring her on now. I'm gonna say a few things while she's on here with me. Come on, let's welcome her. GP.
Hey there.
Yes, there she is, y'all. Praise the Lord. Dr. Brown, Dr. Malaika, we have worked together over the years in the IPYPU. And we have literally, my sister, traveled the world together. Like we have gone around the world together. We've gone everywhere from Chicago to LA to Kansas. Oh my goodness. To Indianapolis to Detroit. Then we had the nerve to go to London, England. Then we had the nerve to go to Paris, France.
Yep.
We have been all over. Malaika served as our convention management coordinator. And so all of the behind the scene things that happened to make the convention and the conference run, as it relates to hotels and booking of rooms and conference centers, she was over all of that. And so we had many early morning talks and late night talks and all throughout the day talks to make this come to pass. One of the beautiful things I'll say about you, though, my sister, and I want you to get started, you never requested for your name to be mentioned. You know, you never was one who was like, did nobody mention me? I need a special seat. You never did that. You were very comfortable with the role that you operated in. And that meant a lot to me, and still does, means a lot to me. And I can appreciate the gift in you because you're comfortable in your own skin and what God has called you to do. And you did it so excellently. So I appreciate you for that. But we're in for a treat tonight. Yes, we're in for a treat. Dr. Brown's listen, she shared just a little bit with me. Y'all get your pens, get your paper, get your notebook, tag some people on here. If you got questions, you can put them in the comments and we're going to get to them. We'll have time to go over some of your questions at the end. But we are in for a treat tonight as she ministers the word of the Lord to us as it relates to mental health. So my sister, Dr. Malaika Brown, let's receive her now. The floor is yours. God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor Perdue. Good evening, GPWA. I am so excited to be here as a part of the Listening Lab and a part of your mental health series. I appreciate my brother and my sister, Pastor and Lady Perdue, for having me and for you guys being here to have a conversation. So I am an educator as well as a therapist by profession, so I like to have a conversation and a dialogue. And so before we get into it, I want to kind of get an idea of who we have amongst us in the group. So if you grew up in church, you can put a raising hand emoji in the comments, trying to see who we have with us, meaning grew up as in younger, even if you weren't born on the pew, but you've been in the church since you were younger age, and most of your formative years, you grew up going to church. I want to kind of see who we have there. Okay, we got Pastor Perdue, the pew baby. He was the one that was born on the pew. Um, we have Sister Neely said she was there. All right. How many of you have been in church for at least 10 years? At least 10 years. So you've been in church for at least 10 years. Okay. So I want to see who's been in the environment, because we're really going to talk about the church environment. There's a quote, and I always use this quote. The quote is by Voltaire. It says that the perfect is the enemy of the good. And oftentimes we hear that and we think that we're saying that we don't want to be or strive for perfection. We want to strive to just be good. And Pastor Diamond, I know you were there all the time. Pastor Diamond is probably another one that grew up on the pew. The reason why I'm bringing up that quote is because what we're going to actually talk about tonight is perfectionism in the church. And it seems like that's not a big deal, but perfectionism is actually a underscore for a lot of mental health issues. And we're finding in studies that for college students, it has actually led to some very severe responses psychologically. And so I analyzed this and I saw the connection and the parallel to the church environment. That's the reason why I wanted to know who grew up in church. So looking at that quote, what it's really basically saying is that insistence on perfection is often hindering or preventing the implementation of improvement. Because when you're only looking to be perfect, you will not settle for anything else, which means that you may not even attempt to try to go towards a goal, because in your mind, you've already said, well, I can't do this perfectly, so I'm not going to attempt it at all. And so what's happening is absolute perfection is the goal, which is not achievable. And increasing your efforts to achieve this goal is spinning your wheels. It's actually diminishing what you are providing. And so you're really just increasing being inefficient because you're trying to attain a goal that does not exist. At some point in our life, we've had moments where we failed to do something the way we wanted to do, which in our mind was the perfect way to do it. We all have these moments. From a cultural standpoint and from a clinical standpoint, trying to reach perfection is called perfectionism. So by definition, I'm going to give you the clinical definition. It's striving for flawlessness and setting exceedingly high standards for performance, accompanied by tendencies for overly critical evaluation. I'll give it to you again. Striving for flawlessness and setting exceedingly high standards for performance, accompanied by tendencies for overly critical evaluations. So I can hear you guys. You're like, well, what's wrong with that? Isn't that excellence? Performance, perfectionism, and performing in excellence are not saying the same thing. Our pursuit should be in excellence. We should be striving for excellence. I'm a person that believes in that. Your pastor, your first lady, absolutely believe in that. But we also have to understand that when we hold standards that are impossibly high and unattainable, and then we judge our efforts and that of other people based on these critical standards to the point where our worth is based on meeting these standards, you are now in that perfectionist trap. No one should be made to feel that their achieving is what gives them value. And perfectionism, unfortunately, is directly connected to you feeling like you matter. Looking at perfectionism, there's 3 different types. So I want to break these down before I get into applying it to the church environment. So the first one is called self-oriented perfectionism. The quote that I like to give to this type is, I demand nothing less than perfection of myself. This person is setting high achievement standards for themselves that cannot be attained, and they're overly focusing on their mistakes and have inflexibility when it comes to the ability to change and pivot if necessary. Other-oriented perfectionism, or perfection imposed by other people, is, the quote for that one is, the people who matter to me should never let me down. Now think about if you've been in a relationship with a person where you did not have the space or the room to not fail, meaning you had to always be on, you had to always be available, You had to have an all access pass, didn't matter what was going on with you. That expectation and that weight is hard to carry. And so that is what other oriented perfectionism is. You expect everybody to give you 100% of what they have. It has to be perfect, and not doing so is letting that person down. The last one is socially oriented or socially prescribed perfectionism. This quote that I like to give to this one is, my family expects me to be perfect. So that perfectionism is coming from a place of the family that you belong to. So remember, we're talking about this in the church, which is our family. This is living under the belief of harsh, socially prescribed standards, and lives to avoid the harsh evaluation of other people in the family because you miss the standard. Now think about that, because you miss the standard. I'm kind of deviate a little bit before I get into some of the causes that I've identified. Think about growing up in church. So all of us who grew up in church, think about the standard that, and I say standard like this, that was always prescribed to us on how we were supposed to behave in the environment, and how we were very meticulous about making sure that we colored in the line, because we knew when you stepped out of that you were going to be reprimanded. You will possibly be the person that was going to be harshly talked to over the pulpit. You were the person that could be made an example of because you didn't stay within the standard. And that seems like not a big deal. But just like Dr. Key talked about, just like other clinicians within the church talk about, you don't know what people are coming into the house with. You don't know what struggles they've had in their background. You don't know if they're dealing with a mental health issue. You don't know if them trying to live up to this perfectionist facade that we've created within the church is going to be the thing that exacerbates their anxiety or their depression that they're already dealing with. And we have to be careful when we're handling one another that we're not forcing them into a mold based on what we believe is what it should look like. So let's look at the psychological perspective and the causes. There's a lot of factors that are believed to play a part when it comes to perfectionism. Number one is biological. There is a moderate genetic component that they found that perfectionism displays more prominently in girls than in boys. And there's not a gene for perfectionism, but they know that there is some kind of biological component that is a factor. Relational factors. This gets into the quality of a child's relationships with their primary caregivers. What was happening in their home in the early life? Whatever that was can set the stage for the development of perfectionism. What they were learning is if they didn't get their needs met, if their self-esteem was not bolstered, if they were not affirmed early in life, you'll find that unconsciously they feel like they have to be perfect. They have to perform in order to get love and approval from those around them. Cultural factors. We absorb from early on the cultural messages and standards and the values for society at large. We can look at today's society, social media. We're on social media right now. So we know that social media is a big part of our cultural universe. But for the church, it's its own ecosystem, okay? It sets the standards and the values for the people at large within the house. And sometimes there can be a challenge when those standards that are set are not necessarily achievable standards. And I'm not talking about the scriptures. I'm talking about the man-made stuff that we put out there and say that we need you to meet this. Another one is cognitive factors. How is a person thinking? Are they dealing with a trauma background, which means they had a traumatic experience in their background and now they're dealing with distortions with how they process information? For them, those distortions are the undercurrent when it comes to perfectionism. And then the last one, when I think this one really applies to the church, is learned behaviors. Because you know, all of us pew babies and church kids and PKs, if we don't know anything, we know the behaviors of the environment. We know when we're supposed to clap. We know when we're supposed to shout. We know when it's okay for us to holler out. We know all of the learned behaviors of the environment. And so with learned behaviors, this is having high standards that are often rewarded with positive attention. All right. When you see that positive attention, it reinforces the perfectionist behaviors. So I often think about the person that sang a solo and they killed it, right? And you notice that that person gets that positive attention. And the next thing you know, you're noticing a trend of people trying to emulate what they saw. Because again, that person got positive attention, which means that if I do this, then that means that I'm going to get that attention and be validated. And that, unfortunately, is what's happening in the church. When you make a mistake, that's criticized. So that feels like punishment. And then the doctrine of meritocracy, we see this. Your status is based on the merit attached based on what you do, not based on who you are. Reinforces that performing perfectly means that you have personal value. And performing perfectly, being flawless, not stepping out of character, not making mistakes is not going to add more value to who you are. So I'm a PK. And are there any other PKs in here? Because if you're a PK, then you already understand where I'm going with this. As a PK, it is expected that you cannot make mistakes. You are on a pedestal in this glass box that is different than every other person that's in the house. When we all serve the same God, we're all professing the same plan. Like when I say you can't make mistakes, if you look at a person wrong, Pastor Jay understands, if you look at a person wrong, you're getting talked to differently than everybody else. And so the standard is not attainable. Perfection is not attainable. We're still human. We're going to still make mistakes. God forbid you get pregnant out of wedlock. God forbid you get a divorce. God forbid you do all the stuff that we're saying is not part of the perfect image. And you're starting to be made to feel criticized. And that criticism, if you're not careful, can lead to you trying to overperform and reach a standard that's not attainable in order to fit into the family. All right. Social-oriented perfectionism, I think, directly applies to the church because of the social nature of the environment. When we're dealing with social-oriented perfectionism, it's so powerful for phenomenon in the general society. It's even more so of a powerful phenomenon in the church, and I'll tell you why. Not only does it threaten you possibly being not accepted in the group or put out, it also makes you believe that if you don't hit the standard that has been set by the people in the environment, that God will also reject you. So it's not enough that my peers or the people that are a part of the family with me are not accepting me, but now I have this misguided belief that God also does not accept me because I'm not meeting this impossible standard. And in the church, we've created this environment, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I don't want to get into placing blame on how we got here. We've created this environment that fosters perfection as the only option. Not excellence, not striving for perfection, not striving to be the best version of yourself, but this is the only option. It's either perfect or it's not done. And that may seem low on the scale of issues that we have in the church, right? We know there are people with mental health disorders. We know there are people that are dealing with abuse. We know the people that have addictions. All of those things are important. But what you don't understand is that this slowly erodes at people like a poison and kills them slowly over time. What it actually does is it dehumanizes them. It reduces them down to their performance. It doesn't see their human value. It identifies them as either useful or not based on what their output is. And then it also looks at, oh, you're beautiful if you have the right presentation. What basically is happening is we've made church and the relationship transactional. If you perform, then I value you. When you stop performing, I no longer have value for you, and you're no longer worth anything for me. Look at our leaders. Look at the leaders within the church. I'm connected to, and I'm blessed to have friendships with pastors in my age group and generation that are pastoring, and have conversations with them about some of the challenges that they have being a pastor in this day and time. And one of it is the unrealistic expectation that they're perfect in all areas. They have all the answers. They know what to do in every situation. They don't make any missteps, any of those things. And that is hard for leadership and alike. You don't have to be a leader. You can just be a person in the pew. It's hard for you to sit in an environment when you're not sure if the people value you, just you, the human, in that environment, not what you bring to the table, not the talents that you have. Can you lift an offering? Can you preach a sermon? Can you teach a class? Can you sing a song? Not that, just you as a person. So some people are like, what's the big deal, right? I would say trying to be perfect to some people may not be that big of a deal, but it really is. When we look at the connection between the rise of perfectionism in society in general and the rise of psychopathology, they're finding that perfectionism is a core vulnerability to a variety of disorders. Disorders, symptoms, syndromes. There's a lot of things that perfectionism actually causes to be worse than it may already present in that person. Here are some of the serious mental health issues and conditions that perfectionism can play a role in not only developing, but continuing. Social anxieties, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, body dysmorphic disorder, depression, and unfortunately, suicidal ideation. These are all serious things. While we're fostering these unrealistic standards of perfection, members are sitting in the pew anxious, afraid to do anything that's off script from the facade that we've created in the church. The reality is, Jesus didn't come for the perfect. He would not have had to die if he was coming for the perfect. He came for the sinner. I said I wasn't going to go to the Bible like this, but I had to. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says that he has made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we may be made the righteousness of God in him, which means that our righteousness is not in ourselves. Our righteousness is in him. The perfection is not in ourselves. The perfection is in him. As long as he's our source, as long as he's our guide, as long as he is who we are looking to give us direction, we may miss the mark, but that's the reason why grace abounds. We're not trying to abuse grace. We're not trying to use it as a crutch. But in my mind, grace is the antidote to perfectionism in the church. And I'll tell you why. There was a quote that I saw from someone in a book that they wrote about their journey growing up in a religious environment. And he said that this grace is indiscriminate compassion. It works without asking anything of us. Grace is sufficient, even though we huff and puff with all our might to try to find something or someone it cannot cover. Grace is enough. Jesus is enough. We don't need to meet these impossible standards. We don't need to continue to impose these impossible standards on the people that are in the pews. We need to understand that we have to create an environment that is conducive for people to be who they are, but also allow them room to grow into being better. If perfection is the standard and there's no room for us to grow into being better, then they will feel as if they don't have value in this environment and they don't have a place in the environment. Have a conversation, and I'm really big on having conversations with the people we're connected to, especially in our church family. Have a conversation, understand their perspective, understand their journey. because maybe understanding their journey and their perspective, how they got to the house, will better equip you to understand the areas that they may still be working and getting better to excel at. You may not understand why they're not the best when it comes to speaking in front of people, but there may be a story behind that, better connecting and understanding their journey. You may not understand why they get a little skittish every time they make a mistake. It could be something in their background with them growing up that caused them to be in that place to where they didn't feel like they had the flexibility to make a mistake because there were harsh punishments. The connection and the relationship that you have with one another is going to be really important. And at the end of the day, and this is my thing that I like to say, it's none of our business what God is doing with everybody else in the house. Our only business is what he's doing with us. It's not, I say stay out of grown folks' business. Grown folks is God, right? It's not our business to figure out what's going on with that person. Our job is to love them the same way God loved us. Our singular job is to love them. And in love, we know that expecting them to be perfect is not going to get them to a place where they're going to succeed. If anything, it's going to be counterproductive in what it is that they have going on. So I really want to highlight again, because I feel like this is really important, the biggest things that we talked about, so much information in such a short amount of time, but I really want to highlight this. Remember, perfectionism and excellence are not synonymous for one another. It's not saying the same thing. Perfect means no mistakes, no room for error. Nothing can be off. Nothing can be out of tune. No words can be missed. So God forbid if Pastor Perdue is preaching and he reads a scripture wrong. That's not perfection. So that would not be acceptable in a perfectionism environment. Don't be the singer that's singing and you hit a wrong note, because all we're going to talk about is that wrong note, because again, that's not perfection. What we have to highlight is the growth that is happening. Are they striving for perfection? The Bible never says we're going to be perfect. It says we're striving, which means our goal is to get to a place of perfection. And I hate to break it to you, as long as we're in this flesh, there will not be perfection. It's not possible. Yes, we have his spirit within inside of us, but this vessel is not perfect. So that means that as we are working to battle this flesh on a daily basis, there will be times that it gets the best of us. The key is, are you working to do better the next time? Are you doing better the next time? So here are some tips. These are some things that I think are really important to understand that you can do. You can make sure that you are support to one another when you see that you're dealing with a person in the church that has challenges when it comes to perfectionism. You want to make sure that you give them the support that they need off the top to let them know that it's not necessary for them to be perfect. It's not necessary. And you have to make sure that they understand that perfection is not what you're looking for. You want to praise the efforts over the results. Praise the efforts over the results. So if they sing a song and the song is not necessarily, every note is not great, praise the effort. Praise that they did a good job. That will help them to know that they have the space to not be perfect, but the space to grow. You want to also emphasize with one another realistic goals. If you're a leader within your church at GPWA, you want to make sure that you are setting realistic goals. Yes, we have high standards, but there's a difference between the high standard and perfectionism. Make sure that you are focusing on the process. Focusing on the process is key. We get so boggled down in the tedium of being perfect that we don't look at the process as something that is important. You want to make sure that you focus on that process. And if there's a long-term goal that you have as a ministry that you're working on, make sure that you break down those goals for the long term so that everyone can see the path that you are going on. Some other tips: using cooperative activities. So doing things where you have to collaborate with one another. Collaboration is key, because if we're collaborating, we're not competing. So I'm not trying to be perfect and you're not trying to be perfect. We're working together for excellence. Working together for excellence. You want to also make sure that when you guys are working together, that you're outlining every person's responsibilities so that people at least know an idea of what the expectation is, so that they can strive to be able to do that. And then probably my last tip that I would give you is encourage flexible problem solving. Problem solving is key, but you can't be stringent. You have to have some flexibility in your problem solving that gives options to how you can approach different situations. And so I'm going to end there. I'm going to give one more thing. Give one more thing. If you see a brother or sister that you think is dealing with this perfectionism issue, discuss these thoughts and behaviors with them. Tell them the things that you noticed. Have a conversation. See where they're coming from, because having that support can be key to them addressing the issues and making sure that they're on a path to really be more productive, healthy in their approach to the environment. And then at the end of the day, we just got to love one another. We have to remember that we are people first. People first, saints second. I think we forget about the people within the roles within the church. The people come first. And if we treat one another as people, then we will continue to foster an environment that is holistic and healthy and allows people to thrive in all the various areas of their life. And that's all I got. And I am open to any questions that you have. Pastor Jay is back on.
Woo! My goodness. My doggone pen, real talk, started going out. I'm like,
I should have had slides. I thought about it. I said, I probably need some slides.
That was so good. Dr. Malaika Brown, that was good, my sister. Listen, a couple questions, and they may have some more come in. But this teaching was so good. It was so clear and precise. One of the questions when you're dealing with the three phases, overly critical, self-oriented, one of the questions that I saw come up was, can you be more than one?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So one was from the perspective of you being critical of yourself, right? Yeah. That was a self-oriented one. The other one was being critical, other people. You're critical of other people, the expectation you have of them. And then in the society that you belong to, or the family that socially you're connected to, you believe that they have expectations. You could be all three, and they could come from all different sources of why you got to that place, but you absolutely could be all three.
Wow. Okay. I think Pastor Diamond had asked that question. So we can be all three. Jeez. And we can be different ones based on the environment we're in, and whatever environment pulls on that particular behavior, that's the one we act out.
Yep. Absolutely.
So sometimes it's not, and I say this respectfully, sometimes it's not that a person has an undiagnosis, right? It's not like we like, man, they acting like they're bipolar. That may not be the case. It could be one of these three. Okay. Cool. Well, this is good. All right, so let me ask you this. You talked about that whole overly critical piece, right? Either overly critical of ourselves or overly critical of others. Here's my question, Dr. Brown. Because I like how you differentiated perfection and excellence, and they're not synonymous, but excellence is still necessary. It's not a lowering of a standard, right? Is there a way to balance being overly critical and having a constructive critique? You know, because some people are like,
There is.
It is? Okay, let me hit it.
There is. So I'll say this about myself. I'll use myself as a guinea pig.
Okay.
I am overly critical of myself. Like, I hold myself to a high standard, but I've had to balance out what's realistic in my criticism and also be open to critique that can help me be better. So my father I didn't get it when I was younger. I used to feel like he was overly critical. What he really was doing was he was giving me critiques on, hey, in the future, try this, tweak this. Because I was already criticizing myself internally really bad, I took it in a different way than he actually was presenting it. And it took me getting older, more mature, more life experience to understand he wasn't really being overly critical. I was being overly critical of myself. So I received it differently than he was sending it to me. He was giving me pointers on, hey, this is something to consider for the next time. All I heard was I failed. I didn't do it correctly. And that's all I saw.
Man, I think that's a great analogy, Malaika. Let me ask you then, how can we find that balance because I'm the type of person who, if I feel like whatever I say is being taken the wrong way, I'm going to leave you alone.
Mm-hmm.
And even if what I'm saying is going to help you, if I see that the person keeps taking it the wrong way, they think I'm being overly critical, I step back. So can you show us how did you shift to start to hear differently? That'd be the first part. The other part is, what could you possibly tell people like me how to shift how we present it?
So using my dad, okay, the relationship obviously is about as intimate of a relationship you have in your life with a parent, right? Mm-hmm. Eventually, one time he realized that I wasn't really hearing what he was saying or receiving it, and he had to stop me. And he was just like, I just want you to know I love you. Like, he just stopped all the critique, and he was just like, I love you. Okay. And he didn't even go back to what he was talking to me about. He went to the relationship. That's why at the end, I wanted to kind of hit on the fact that our relationship with one another is key. Because when we have relationship with the people, you get to know them and their intent and their heart. So then you're not defensive when they're coming at you. But when you don't know the person, the wall's going to be there until the intimacy comes in. So, like, for example, I mean, you were never like this with me, but if, say, something didn't go right when we were working with IPYPU, yeah, you came at me or you were frustrated. If I didn't know you and know your heart, I would have taken that as you being critical. You were upset with me. I screwed up. Like, I would have taken it from that perspective instead of saying, no, that's not him. He just wants us to do things properly and he's frustrated. But even in his frustration, he's caring, he's kind. And I think if we know the person, that is the best stepping stone. If you don't know the person, then maybe take a step back and say, hey, I don't think we're communicating effectively. I don't think you're receiving what I'm saying. Let's, take some time to get to know each other. Like, ask a question that is totally not related to what you guys are talking about and take it a different direction, diffuse, lower the wall, open them up, and then maybe approach it after you guys have taken a sidebar. Because I think sometimes people feel like, especially in church, we don't feel like we have the flexibility. Like, if a person comes to you in church, you automatically brace for it. They're coming to criticize you for something. Like, that's, yeah. Like, you just preached a sermon. They're coming up to you after you preach that sermon. In your mind, you're like, oh, they got something to say about what I said. That's right. So the wall's already up. It's up. We're already defensive because we were raised in an environment or in a culture that condemns, if I can say it like that. Yes. Yes. Or calls you out. Pastor Carla Allen from Detroit, she put up what I was getting ready to say. What the scripture says: know them that labor among you. And that deals with that piece, Dr. Malaika, you were talking about with relationship.
And so we can hear better and we can speak better when we do it from a place of love. And it keeps it from being, like you mentioned earlier, transactional.
Right. And don't reduce them. Knowing them is not what is their job at the church. That's not knowing them.
Good.
Knowing them is, you know, their hobbies. Do you know what they do for a living? Do they have kids? What's their favorite color? What stuff do they like to do in their free time? If you don't know, and I'm not saying we're going to be like that with every person in the church, but if you're saying you're connecting a relationship with people, you should know basic things about them. Like, I have people at the church, we're connected on our Apple Watches. And so we have these battles that we have around fitness, right? Or we have little inside jokes about things that you would have to know something about one another to have these inside jokes, because that means there's intimacy there.
Like,
you want to give an example?
Wait a minute. Okay, so we know what that means.
We know what that means. Everybody doesn't know what that means. So we got to, and we know where it happened at.
Yes.
Right? So it's like there's intimacy. Like, the nickname I have for you is because of the relationship I've had. I was like, I noticed, I was like, he sure is an R&B singer, but he sure is a preacher too. And there you have it, Reverend R&B, right? So it's about knowing the human. Not we're like, oh, you're deacon such and such, or you're elder such and such, or you're district elder. Like, I'm just Malaika. I respect everyone's positions and titles that they've earned, but I hate that every time we address people, we can't just address them by their name, because then now we're reducing them to a title or a position and not to who they are as an individual. And I feel like that is key.
Ooh, that's good, Malaika. I would like for you to speak on, if you could, about we've been dealing with this piece of being overly critical, but how being overly critical is not synonymous with being held accountable.
Right. So overly critical means you've given them an impossible standard to meet that no person could actually meet. Like, it's not humanly possible to meet that standard. And then when they don't meet these impossible standards, you're criticizing every nook and cranny of what they're doing. Holding them accountable means I gave you a task and I expect you to complete the task. So when you don't complete the task, we have to have a conversation, right? Some of it too is letting go of people doing things the way we want them to do it. What's the goal, right? We talked about going over long-term goals. What's the goal? How they get to the goal may look differently than how you would get to the goal. But do they get to the goal? That's where the accountability comes in. Did they get there? It may look different. They might have 25 steps and you might have done it in 5. Doesn't matter. Did they get to the goal? And so it's really about understanding that don't put people in a position to fail. Super high standards that cannot be met puts a person in a position to fail. And sometimes we know it. You know, when you give the person a solo and you know that that's not their calling and their gifting, that you already put them in a position to fail. They're not going to beat that standard. Like, that's not possible.
Yeah.
You got to be realistic. Know your personnel, right? We're huge sports fans. You got to know your personnel and you got to operate with that knowledge.
You know, that ties into what you were teaching earlier about encouraging flexible problem solving and showing us there's not just one way. You know, we grew up in an era, Malaika, where it was because I said so.
Right.
You know?
No questions asked.
Right. You do it because I said so. There was no encouraging of flexible problem solving. It was one way to do it and only one way. I think that's key for leaders. I think that's key for our mental health, not being stressed out, not destroying relationships, understanding, as you stated, that old school phrase, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So
absolutely,
we can solve this problem and it doesn't have to be my way. The end goal is that we come to a resolution that's productive for all of us. I see. Let me put up what Dr. Carla Allen said, she said, my dad raised us with the spirit of excellence, so it's truly a part of who I am. So I do have the tendency to hold people to high standards and pulling out the greatest potential in them if they allow me to. I think that's key with the if they allow me to. What do you think, Doc?
I don't think the high standards are the problem, because if we're striving for excellence, our standards are high. It's impossible, unachievable standards. That's the issue. So I do agree. My dad raised me that way. I'm pretty sure your parents raised you that way. Like, I come from, a father was the only college educated of his siblings. So he had a standard already before he even got to church. So he brought that mentality into the church. And then in his church, he had really high standards that he had visions of stuff that people were like, how do you even see this? Right. And he worked to execution.
Yeah.
But even in that, there are some things that you have to know is just out of the realm of your capabilities. It doesn't mean that you can never get there, but you have to know what's achievable and what's not. And your goals have to be realistic. Your goals have to be realistic. We have to stop saying, I want 1,000 members in my church, and you just started your church yesterday. That's not a realistic goal.
Come on.
There's some churches been open for 20 years and don't have 1,000 members.
And so the reality with that, if we use that analogy, is also to consider the day and age we live in, to where that quite possibly won't happen because church attendance in a physical building has declined.
Yep.
Not necessarily a belief system, but people showing up. I mean, look at us tonight having Bible study. You're in California.
Yep.
2 hours behind from at least Central Standard Time. And so, and we got people from the East Coast that's on Eastern Standard Time that's on here right now as well. And we're all able to meet. None of us are in the same building. 25 years ago, this would have been unheard of.
Right.
So I think that's true. Just the reality of that's not realistic. You're not going to get 1,000.
No.
And now you're putting expectations on the people that's in there. That's unrealistic. It's not going to happen.
Right. Everybody's like, oh, but TD Jakes. I'm like, you don't know what it took TD Jakes to get to where he's at. It wasn't something that happened overnight. And you don't know what his process was. And there's so many factors. He's in part of the Bible Belt, right? Like, there's so many things that you have to consider when you started history that you can't place on where you are right now. What you should be striving for is for God to send the people to the house that you are called to minister to. The people that that you're directed to minister to, those are the people you want to send. The number doesn't matter.
That's right.
Send the people that I'm supposed to be helping and equip me so that I can help them when they get here. That's what we should be focusing on, realistic goals.
And in that, we can be excellent.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I look at what you do from afar, and you are not out here just scraggling this stuff together. Like, you are putting together quality things, and people will say, oh, he has a mega ministry. Like, they're looking like, no, you can have a mega ministry mentality, meaning right. I'm going to provide excellence, even if I only have 100 people, or I have 200 people, or if I have 50 people, I can still provide excellence in what I do. And that's what we should be striving for. Perfection is not something we're going to get down here. Our perfected body comes in a different realm.
There you go.
Now, if y'all trying to go that way right now, then only two ways to get there. By the grave or by the rapture. That's all I got for you.
Right. I'll say this too. Perfectionism, as you have so well articulated, is really the enemy of excellence.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's what that quote was saying.
Yeah.
That perfect is the enemy of the good. It's really saying that it's the enemy of excellence.
It's the enemy of excellence. This has been tremendous. This has been really good. I want you all to show some love with the likes, with the hearts. I need y'all to go crazy on there. And let's thank God for Dr. Brown. She did an outstanding job. This was tremendous. I thank the Lord for you, my sister. Man.
Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Well, don't worry, because then you gonna show me back. And specialist again, I really appreciate you squeezing us in to do this. I know you had sessions before the Bible study, and I know you have sessions after the Bible study. But because we have relationship, see what I'm saying, people? This is relationship. I knew I could call Dr. Brown. I knew I could call Dr. Key. And I was out of relationship. This went beyond our relationship being transactional. We met in 2014, and we met due to positions that we were all in. But none of us serve in those positions anymore, and we still have a relationship.
Absolutely. Family for life.
Family for life. Family for life. Thank you, my sister. Thank
You're
God.
welcome.
I'm going to where Dr. Brown will talk to you backstage after this is over. I'm as they say on the radio, I'm gonna pay a few bills, and then we're gonna close. Thank you, my sister. That was a dynamic Bible study. My goodness. Dr. Brown blessed us tonight. Listen, I want you to be a blessing tonight. I want you to give as the Lord has laid on your heart to give. The Lord has blessed us to have some powerful word dealing with the total man. We're dealing with, again, mind, body, and spirit. Man is a trichotomy. And so God want to make sure every part of man is healthy. Mind, body, and spirit. And so we have brought in people who have taken time out of this schedule to be a part of what we're doing. And these are people who are not giving their opinion. All right. They have spent tens of thousands of dollars for the information that you have gotten tonight, that I've received tonight. It has cost them time. It has cost them money. It has cost them energy. It has cost them strength. And we're thankful to God that they deemed it as a part of their agenda to be a part of what we're doing for this mental health month. And so I want you to give tonight, and I want you to be a blessing to help us continue to do and bring in quality people and present quality programming for what we do in the ministry and at the church. God is good. You all know what we do in the community. You all know what we do within the church, within the ministry. You all know the people we have fed, the organizations that we've helped, the wells that we've helped to build in Sierra Leone, the schools we've helped to with the students feed in Sierra Leone, not just out the country, but also in the country, right? You know, we don't just believe in passing up the people in our backyard and blessing people in other places. We do both. It's not either or, it's both and. So you know the ways to do that. You can give by CashApp. You know the information. Gathering, that's capital G. Gathering, capital PWA. Capital G, Gathering, then capital PWA. If you give by Zelle, it's GPWA17@gmail.com. GPWA17@gmail.com. You can give by text to give 815-242-2300. All right. Thank you for your liberality. Thank you for sowing in faith. I always tell people, ask God what you should give. Whatever he says, it will be right. Even our giving, we don't give to be perfect, right? We give in a spirit of excellence, and you give in excellence when we give what God has told us to give. And so I don't have any particular number to tell you. I'm telling you or asking you to ask God, and God's going to tell you what to sow tonight into the ministry for such a time as this. All right. I'm excited. I'm excited about this word. If you came in late, go back and watch it again from the beginning. If you were here on time, go back and watch it again from the beginning. All right. He says, that word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against you. You have to meditate on the word of the Lord. And in that law, Haggah, doth he meditate day and night. Haggah, meditate, whisper, growl, mutter. And in that law does he meditate day and night. So keep his word in your heart. Meditate on it. So go back and watch this again. Share it if you haven't shared it already, that it can be a benefit and a blessing to other people. All right. Remember, June 24th, we have our church picnic. It's going to be a tremendous time at Sunset Park. It's where we have it every year. I want you to come out. It's from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. We'll have the bouncy house out there for the children. We'll have other games. You all know we had that kickball game. There's about 100 people out there last year playing kickball. We had relay races and all of that. It's going to be catered this year. And so everybody will get an opportunity to enjoy the picnic. We don't have to worry about people working the grill and all of that and cooking. They'll get to enjoy this year with the picnic. So be there. I want you to be a part. Remember now, it starts at 11 o'clock. It ends at 4. All right. The food is there until it's gone. So I want you to be there if you want to plate and come fellowship with us. Also, this Sunday, I want to see your face in the place. I will be in the building ministering the word of the Lord. Remember, at 12 o'clock this Sunday is our GPWA Cafe. Come out for food and fellowship. We got fruit, donuts, pastries, coffee, orange juice, all that good stuff, right? Come and fellowship before church. That's at 12 o'clock at the GPWA Cafe. And then, of course, our service starts at 12:30. I mean, get it. Get this. If you come for the fellowship before church, you'll be on time for church. You see how God works that out? Look at that. We don't have to always fellowship after church. We can do it before church. Come get to know, as Dr. Malaika Brown was talking to us about relationship. That's one of the ways we build relationship, through fellowship. And you have an opportunity to do it before church. You can ask people, how was your week? What's going on in your life? How is the job? How are your children? It's graduation season. What's going on? How are your grandkids? Fellowship before church. And you can do that at the GPWA Cafe. It's all free. So come and be a part of that. All right. I love you all with the love of God. I'm looking forward to seeing you this Sunday. There's going to be a mighty word from the Lord. Be there. Also, last thing, and I got to get out of here. Tomorrow is our interest meeting on Zoom for Meals and Mentors. This is our summer camp program, right? Our summer camp program. And so get on the Zoom tomorrow. The link, you can go on my page and you'll see the video, and the link information is there. And we'll send something out in the announcements as well. But it's an interest meeting for if you want your children to be a part of our summer program. Summer is coming up from ages 8 to 16. All right. You can get the information on what the cost is. I'm telling you now, I've seen the prices of the summer program. You ain't gonna get one at the price that we're charging. You're not gonna find one in this city with the price we're charging. You're not gonna find one. We got the best prices in town. So seating is limited. And so tomorrow at 7 p.m. on Zoom, come on, and you'll get that information, the price. We start June 12th, but you got to come tomorrow to get the information on how to sign up. All right. Look at the commercial on my page. And I think it's on the church page, but it is on my page if you haven't seen it yet, about what's in store at Meals and Mentors Summer Program. All right. I love you all with the love of Christ. Thank you again, Dr. Malaika Brown. We're looking forward to seeing you all this Sunday for GPWA Experience. And remember, until then, it's not about being perfect. It's about being excellent in what God has called you to do. God bless you all. Peace.
Thank you for being a part of another GPWA experience. Don't miss a single broadcast or any content that we're creating. Go now and subscribe and/or follow us on all of our platforms. Be sure to like and share the gospel. We love you with the love of Christ. We'll see you next time at GPWA.